Man, so as I was building this message out, all I can hear about is, my gosh, the coronavirus, da, 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 this and that and stuff like that, and everyone's just running around everywhere. And at just one point, it was creeping up in my head. And it was my choice to say, God, you are able to conquer fear, to conquer the disease, to conquer it, anything. Or it was my choice to say, you know what? I'm going to be feared right now, and I'm going to just get hand sanitizer and put it all over my body. It was the choice. And I just hope that, I hope a lot of people, even just the people a part of Corridor, wasn't scared to come because of the coronavirus. But there's a lot of fear going out there, right? This is what we're living in right now, is fear, right? In the world right now, where we live, right? And so sometimes it's easy to kind of, I don't know, I guess just be like distracted, right, throughout it. That's why I love that song, Waymaker, right? Even when I don't see it, you're still working. Even when I don't feel it, you're still working. You never stop working. This week, my mom and I were just kind of like talking about a lot of stuff, just about preparation, about, just making sure you're not really like hugging people and stuff like that, just making sure you're just giving like a little fist bump and stuff. And like, I went up to my mom and I said, Mom, what are you worried about? Right? I said, what are you worried about? And she's like, oh, nothing, I'm not worried about anything. I'm just, just be cautious, right? Use wisdom, right? Because she pulled that on me. And I just remember looking at her and I said, Mom, where is your faith? Right? Where is your faith? And she was like, oh no, I have faith, but like you have to just make sure you're taking care of yourself throughout it. And I said, absolutely, right? But where's your faith? And it's so easy, even in marriages, to relationships, throughout it, all of it, right? We get distracted so fast, and we get feared based on an outcome or something that happens, right? And I wanted to kind of like talk to you guys about just addressing this fear in our community and fear in our own personal lives. And I'm not going to hold back, but I want to press forward in this subject. Because I think, man, like each and every one of us have so much joy, right? We have so much joy. And we can dance, we can praise, we have all the fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control, gentleness, and forgive me if I missed one or the other. But you have all the fruits of the Spirit, right? You have freedom. You have it. Don't worry about what people think about you or the right or left of you. Because that's what this world is doing right now, right? And we have so many people breaking right now, right? We have so many people breaking right now, right? Like, I was talking to a friend, and he told me, he said, thanks to the coronavirus, we're about to see who really has faith and who doesn't. And when he told me, I was like, dang, that's real, right? Like, that's real, Like, when tough times come throughout that, who are we, right? And so in my message today, I don't want to take up much time, but in my message today, I wanted to talk about what it looks like to be the salt and light of this world, right? Instead of just kind of being in the house, isolated, what it means to be salt and light to people around you and into relationships and to the community, into the world, above all. So if you pull up Psalms 91. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely He will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with His feathers, and under His wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. That's good. As I was just really meditating on the scripture, James encouraged me with Psalms 91. And he said just to meditate on this. And as I was reading it, I was just like, why am I scared? Right? Why am I worried? Why am I tuning into the media? If you guys don't know, I work in social media. And so I know everything of what media is trying to do. And so literally Sharon and I think Jeff were like teasing me saying like, this is going to be like my exposed channel. Right? This is going to be me exposing social media and me exposing of what's really going on, right? Throughout it. Because sometimes we can see so much negative stuff and that's what sells, right? Wow. Whatever it is, here's the thing, in social media, they will do whatever it takes that sells. And they will feed that in your mind until you start believing what they say, right? And I can't stay quiet anymore because I've seen so much of it. I've seen so much of my cousins, I've seen so much of my family, I've seen so much friends, and other people fall under this throughout it. And so I want to address this, even as I'm talking to you guys. One thing that it always reminded me of the song, it may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded by the coronavirus, but ultimately I'm surrounded by you, right? And as I was kind of like just going and just preparing, I was listening to that song the whole time, right? Because the enemy was trying to plant seeds in my mind as I was building this message throughout it, right? And that's the only song that was reoccurring in my mind. Even though I'm surrounded by you. Jeff, you can go to the next slide. Okay. Everyone read this. Love that. So I fall under this, right? We were just even talking about it yesterday, where we were talking about sports. We're just like, man, like they canceled like the NBA, right? They're canceling this and that. They're canceling entertainment. And we were just talking about that all the time. And then I got convicted of this. This is not my saying, but this is someone else from Upper Room. Her name is Alyssa, I believe. Alyssa. This is what she posted on social media. So this is her fight against social media. So she said, one of the greatest gods in America is being shut down, sports and entertainment, right? When we look at, and to all the sports fans out here, when we look at our favorite teams and what we rep throughout that, and how much we fight for our teams and stuff, right? We will go all in for our team, right? And we'll bleed for our team throughout that, right? And in this moment right now, I believe that the coronavirus is actually doing something good, right? Where it's exposing a lot of these other gods, false gods, right? And for us to be aware of what's truth and what's fake, right? So, Jeff, you can go to the next slide. Schools are being closed, which is forcing needed relational proximity for marriages and families. Some people might think, hey, like, it's a bad thing that schools are closed, right? But I see all the time that families don't even have enough time for their kids.
Right. That's good.
How do I know that? Because that's what I grew up in, right? Especially within my community, in the Indian community, right? It was always about school, and it was never about how are you. It was never about that, right? And I don't know about you guys, but that was tough for me growing up, right? And that led into so many different things throughout that, right? And so there's so many kids right now that are saying school, like we're not having school anymore. And then you have parents saying, oh man, like, school. But it should rather be a good thing for the parents to build that much more relationship with the kids, right? And to say, you know what? I love you no matter what. And if tomorrow was our last day, then we'll go all out for God right now, right? And so let's go to the next one. The stock market is plummeting, exposing the greed and fear of lost humanity. Oh, man. So I don't know if we have any investors in here or people that have just, I don't know, I guess like did stuff for money, right, throughout it. This is crazy to me because I have so many family members and I'm in a group chat where all these people are just like, this stock went down, this stock went down, this stock went down, this stock went down. And people are trying to double their money and stuff like that. And I was in cryptocurrency a long time ago and I got burnt from it. And I left that thing because I saw what kind of like monster that was throughout that. And even with the stock market, right? There are people right now that their jobs are just to look at the board and just to wait when a number goes down and goes up. That's their only job. And they get so addicted to that. They make that their God. They make money their God, right? And that's all they do 24/7. right? It's just wait for the stock market to go up or down, up or down, up or down, up or down. I remember when I was in that, because all I can think about was, and I think I spoke to Jeff about it a long time ago when I had cryptocurrency. Like, I just remember looking at my phone, I'm just like, oh man, it went down, it went up, it went down, it went up, it went down. And that's all like I was doing, right? I don't know if you remember that, Jeff. Yeah. And so that was literally me. I saw the glimpse of that world. I saw the glimpse of that false God, right? And it's crazy that now it's exposing the greed and fear of lost humanity, right? So we can go to the next one. Large church and conference events are being canceled, allowing house-to-house gatherings to explode like the book of Acts.
Come on, somebody.
So I hear a lot of mixed feelings on this.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the right. Some people are saying, well, you know, you should still have your church and still push forward and break through it. And then there's other people saying, you know what, like live stream, all this other stuff throughout and there's a perspective that Alyssa saw. And Alyssa's from Upper Room. She saw this perspective because she's in it, right? And if you don't know Upper Room, it's a big church throughout that. And what she was saying was large church and conference events are being canceled, right? And this allows us to come together. It's so cool right here, where we're all together, right? And having intimate space and saying, and hopefully afterwards we can just really just ask, how are you? And do life with each other.
Amen.
Yeah.
And I'm not knocking any big church. I'm not knocking anyone's ministry throughout that. But I know for myself, when it comes to, you know, big churches throughout that, it's hard for me to do relationship,
That's right.
right? And so what would it look like if one day we can come here and this was everyday life where we walked with each other throughout it. We feasted with one another. We had joy with one another. We danced with one another. We loved one another. And we said no matter what, we have each other's backs. Because that's what the book of Acts was, right? Every day, right? They did that. Money wasn't an issue, right? The rich would give to the poor. And there was just so much influx of it where they walked with each other throughout that. And so I love this so much because it reminds us never to follow the trend. Don't follow the trend. People will make the trend. People will make big waves, as Francis Chan calls it, right? It's a wave upon wave, and it just comes like this, and that's it. Don't follow the trend throughout that. Whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be a big church or conference, whatever it is, but in your just personal life, right? Just remember, it's about relationship. But how do we get relationship if we don't have a relationship with God? Right? And I'll be speaking on that later on. Jeff, you can go to the next one. Prayer and a recognized need for God and His healing and protection has never been greater. Why do I say that right now? I don't know if you guys know the Send, the conference. In Brazil, over 140,000 people packed out 3 stadiums, wanting to chase after God and nothing else, right? 3 million people were live in the live stream, just watching. 3 million people live, right? Not views, you know, like YouTube views and stuff, like not 3 million, 3 million live watching, right? In China, 24/7 prayers going on every single day in the underground,
Amen.
where they're contending for each other. They're contending for everything.
Thank you.
They're contending for your lives, and they're contending that tomorrow's going to be a better day. Right? In Mongolia, they're recently just discovering Jesus there. But there's something powerful going on over there by a ministry. Africa, right? Man, and we were just talking about this in the car. Africa, I believe, is or is about to become the first continent to be, the most Christians in a continent. And I don't know if you know that story, but it started by one person that decided to say yes. Does anyone know who that person is? Reitner Banke. He decided to give his yes, even when it was difficult. Even when no one believed in him, even when people thought he was crazy, he decided to give his yes. Fast forward, now we're seeing the seed that was grown and the fruit coming out, where it's the largest continent right now of Christians. Right? So just think, if you give your yes to God, right? each and every one of you guys, right? Like God can do something so crazy to explode a continent. And yet sometimes we don't believe it. Because we'll catch the lie of the enemy, for not us to have joy, love, peace, none of the fruits of the Spirit, but us just to be isolated, right? And walls to come up, right? But God didn't intend that. He said, I formed you in your mother's womb knowing of what he had for you. And sometimes we're just trying to take too much control of it, right? And God says, let me just go on the steering wheel. Well, that's hard. That's tough. But that's the obedience that I'm talking about. That type of obedience. Not a maybe, but a yes. Right? You never know who in this room right here will shake a nation for God. Right? Gibson, I think you were speaking on it when we had our men's book study of the Bait of Satan. Gibson was right here and he asked just great questions. Just great questions he was asking. And did you specifically ask if you could shake a nation, or was it something, do you remember that dream? Well, I believe it was to shake a nation for God. And like when he said that, a young kid said that, to say, my dream is to shake a nation for God. I just remember we huddled him and we just started praying for him right then and there. Right? Chris, Jeff, me, James, Jobin, we all just started praying for him right then and there. And we said, how can we support that dream to make it alive? And I love how we did Dream Night. For the people that didn't come to Dream Night, it's not too late to share. We can do this even afterwards, right? But Dream Night is for us to talk about what God has put in our hearts and visions and dreams, for us to talk about it and for us to support it and say, hey, how can I serve you to build that dream up? Instead about saying me, 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 me. But what about you? 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 What if it wasn't about self-help, but it was about self-sacrifice?
Go ahead.
What if it wasn't about us this whole time, but it was about you? And I think that's how Jesus came 2,000 years ago when he was on this earth. He didn't think of himself, but he thought of you.
Amen.
And he did it for you. Right?
Right.
And so I can't sit here right now knowing that everyone has such a dream. Everyone has authority in the power of Jesus. Like sickness doesn't even come close to you. Right? That's why when we were praying for you, Job, we just rebuked that right on the spot, man. You know? Like, man, like, I think Jeff was sharing with me a story. Does anyone know John G. Lake? Please raise your hand if you know that. John G. Lake was a gentleman that healed a lot of people. And based on what Jeff was telling me, that, this guy had so much faith to the point of where no sickness could come across him because he had that much faith, right? And as I believe there were some people that didn't believe him, doctors that didn't believe him. And so he said, if I touch any disease, it will die, right? And so this is what happened, right? They went to a lab, and there were living cells right there of a disease, of sickness, right? And you can tell because there was a microscope in it, and it was all moving and stuff like that. It was the saliva of someone else, and everyone saw it. It was all captured, right? Everyone saw it. And people are kind of worried. People are just like, dang, dude, like, you're really going to do this right now? And he said, absolutely, right? And I remember, as he was telling me this, as he's he touches the cell, he touches the saliva right then and there, and when they look, it just stops moving. All the cells stop moving at that spot. And even everyone was in shock. They were all in shock, and they were just like, what in the world? Like, what are you? As if he was a child of God. And I was talking to Jeff even after that, and I think Jeff was telling me, he was just like, that's so crazy because his faith is all the way up here, but then he was saying, it's crazy because we're all like, dang, that's crazy, but you know what? That's the norm. The faith that he had was the norm.
That's right.
Our faith, our standards were all the way down here. But his was the norm, and that's what we have. Right? Like you have that, you have that, you have that, you have that, you have that. The amount of faith. And there's all this coronavirus going on right now and people being scared, and there's our Christians that are just kind of like bending the knee right now. They're bending the knee to fear. Right? And it's choking us. But what a lot of people don't see is the revival that's happening already. Right? A lot of people don't talk about that. Media won't talk about that.
Right.
They will not talk about that. They will not talk about Africa, what's going on over there, or Mongolia, or China, or India, or anywhere, Brazil, Argentina, that's about to happen. They're not talking about that. So this is me being a news outlet to you guys. Because they will not talk about that. There's so much stuff going on there. And I've talked about this with some other people. There's stuff, as in human trafficking, that's going on. That's not talked about. And I'm tired of that. I can't stand that. I got an Amber Alert. I was at Publix and I got an Amber Alert of someone missing. And as everyone's phone was going, you can hear everyone's just phone going, doing the Amber Alert. And everyone just looked at it and they're just like, okay. Right? Like as if it was nothing. As if it wasn't their responsibility. And they just looked at it and just put it away. And that's the norm that we're creating. We're creating the norm in churches and other places that it was about us and never about him.
Wow. Go ahead.
And this is how we're walking. Man. So as we were worshiping, as we were going out throughout that, like you serve a God that is the creator of the universe. That has loved you day in and day out when man or woman wasn't even there for you. Right? And you have the fruits of the Spirit. Right? And so, man, like, even after this, I would encourage you guys just to commune with one another and just love one another and just ask, how are you? Right? Just encourage and pray and just love and just have joy, right? Because I see what the enemy's trying to do out there. And he's trying to kill, steal, and destroy all of that. He's trying to do it through our families. He's trying to do it through marriages. He's trying to do it through relationships. He's trying to do it through this virus. And he's trying to do it in our churches. And that's where we need to step up and say no. Right? Like, we need to be stronger and say, you know what? No. Like, enemy, you have no authority over us. Right? Jeff, you can go to the next. 2 Timothy 1:7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. If it says it right there, how come sometimes we don't believe it? Right? Like, it says it right here. For God has not given us the spirit of fear. If God hasn't given us the spirit of fear, then who has? What insecurity has? What pain has? What in the past caused that? It was definitely not from God. Right? So sometimes when we're just kind of like this and stuff like that, that was not from God. And he never intended that for each and every one of you guys. Right? And sometimes as brothers and sisters, we're just not going up to each other and just saying, how are you? And praying with each other and just really rebuking the enemy and just moving forward in God. But sometimes it becomes about self-help rather than self-sacrifice. Right? Jeff, you can go to the next one. Here is a video of a tree. A beautiful tree, right? Notice how it's very isolated. It's a huge tree. It's as big as James, right? Like, it's... Notice how this tree, man, it's so big. And if you were to see it, you'd just be like, nothing can shake that tree. Nothing can, like, break that tree. Nothing can blow that tree down. It can't be broken. And notice how it's isolated. Jeff, you can play that video. Yeah. Yep. There it goes. There it goes. The biggest tree in all of that island. Notice how that tree was just so big. And if you were to see it even in person, you would just be like, there's nothing that can chop this thing down. And see, this is what happens in marriages, in relationships, in our friendships, in our own personal lives, that we look so big, right? We look so big, but deep down inside on the back end, in our roots, there's no foundation there, right? There's no foundation, no roots to hold the grip of the foundation of this earth. And if we're not entrusting God, if it's not all about God, if it's not about this word, then we're going to be shaken and we're going to collapse, even if you're big, even if you have that much pride, even if you're one of the toughest men or women on this earth, you will still fall because there was never any foundation or any root throughout that. So let me show you a good example, right? Okay, you can play next video. All right, look at this, a family of trees, right? Saying, devil, no, not today, right? All singing Waymaker at the same time. Great video, right?
Yeah.
What did we see from that video? What did we see from that video? But notice, okay, I'll ask you guys the question. What was the difference between the first and the second video? You can just start answering.
A lot more trees.
A lot more trees.
They were together.
They're together. Small. You were, Chris, what do you think?
There were smaller trees.
They're smaller trees. Very good. Yeah. So, yeah, so number one, James, Dory, they said they were all in one, right? There were a lot more trees. Notice how they were smaller, right? This is what we're doing. Sometimes you can be the biggest thing, you can be the biggest tree, but if you're in isolation, you will fall.
Go ahead.
Right? If you don't have community, if you don't have brothers or sisters to say, you know what, I'm going to push you forward and I'm going to sharpen you like iron. If it's not about you, if we don't care about the other or the other individual, we will fall like that big tree. But notice how in that video that there were a bunch of small trees. I remember one person once told me, and they were just like, oh, you know what, I just feel so small compared to everyone and stuff. And I told myself, and this person told me that they didn't feel worthy enough to do certain stuff, right? And this person looked at us, and they were just like, this person was just like, man, sometimes I get intimidated. I told myself, even though you might be small in your perspective, you are so big to God's eye, right? And even when you're in community, even when you're surrounded by good brothers and sisters, you will not fall. You will persist. Look how it was choking those trees. At one point, they looked like they were about to fall down, right? But they wouldn't give up. They wouldn't give up as if something else was in the foundation of their hearts. There was something else there. They were rooted in the ground. The small trees were rooted in the ground, right? They were all rooted in the word throughout it. And if we're not rooted in this, then we will be shaken to the core. And if you don't believe that, then you'll see it one day, right? We will all just be shaken up and just be thrown around everywhere. But when the enemy hits us with something like the coronavirus right now, will we be rooted right now to stay firm and say, we're not going to be shaken, but together as a community, even though if you might think you're small, that we're not going to be shaken because we are rooted in the ground together, right? That's why I love that visual so much, because that's our own personal lives. And if we're not doing something about it, then something else will do something about it for us, right? Jeff can you go to the next slide? Okay. John 15:1. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit apart from me. You can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. It's not about how much knowledge you know. Man, I'm the last one to know so much knowledge, but I can stand up right here knowing that I love God. Right? And it's my job as a light to go around the world, not to be fearful, but to keep going, to keep going, to keep going. And there's so much different things that are going on. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness. And then ultimately, one person's yes can lead to a nation saying yes for God. And you probably don't even know that right now. You're sitting in this room. You're probably like, oh, that's not me. This light didn't think so. Right? One person's yes can shake the nation for God. Right? So we're called to be the salt and light in this world. Right? Don't let people distract you. Don't let social media distract you. You have such a mission and you have such a calling. If tomorrow was your last day, what would you do today? Right? Like, what would you do today if tomorrow was your last day? Or rather, if Jesus was here right now, what would you do? Right? Like, what would you do if Jesus was right here? I've heard answers, and I spoke in my church about this. I heard answers of people saying, oh, I would worship him. I would be in awe. I would be like, oh my God, I wouldn't know what to say. Right? And then it was kind of convicting, and I told them, well, what's stopping you from doing that? Right? And so when we're in worship, right, when we're just praising God throughout that, we're not called to just sit like this and just kind of being like, oh, everything sucks. But we're called to just dance and have joy, right? Like, we're called to have so much hope towards what we can do in this earth, right? And I love Justin's message, right? Even last week. And if you guys were here, it was an amazing message. And one thing that stuck out the most was some people don't even believe that they're a conqueror, but you're just not a conqueror. You're more than a conqueror.
That's good.
Right? Not even just a conqueror. And so why do we just sit here as if it's just something so mundane, and if it was all about us? It was never about us. It was always about him. And sometimes when we're just selfish, we have like a lot of pride going on. We have all this anger that builds up and stuff. We're just like, me, me, me. Where's frustrations come? It comes from the bait of Satan. But to the people that don't know about that, we're doing a book study called The Bait of Satan. It's a great book. You should read it. But we pick up the bait so much, and we get frustrated, and we make it about ourselves. Have you guys ever, there was one point where, you can raise your hands if this is you, where you got so frustrated at your parents that you want to just leave, right? That you were just kind of, I just want to run away. Yeah, me too, many times, right? And then afterwards, I remember when I would get so frustrated, I remember I would say like certain things. I'd be, I'm running away, like I don't care about you guys, da da da, X, Y, and Z and stuff like that. And then I would just be like on my pillow, just like yelling in the pillow throughout it, right? And like an hour later, I'm just kind of like, man. I remember my mom would come to me and just be like, Steffi, I love you. That's what she calls me, Steffi. She'll be like, Steffi, I love you. And I'll just be like, oh. Like I would just melt. I'll be like, I don't want to run away anymore. Right? But notice what told you to do that in that very moment? Right? What told you to do that in that very moment? If it wasn't you, then what was telling you to do that in that very moment? Right? And it says we're not to battle with flesh, but the spirit behind it. Right? And so this is how we go deeper, and this is how we be the salt and light to the world. We go deeper with Jesus.
That's
right. Even though you have pain, though you have deep pain, go deeper in prayer. Go deeper in prayer, right? And don't give up. Don't give God 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. You just go at it, right? I promise you, God will take care of the rest, right? Go deeper with God, right? Go deeper as if there was a problem going out in this world. As if it wasn't about yourself, but it was about everyone there. You know what's crazy to me? There's so many people out there that are scared of the coronavirus and they don't have no basis or foundation. They don't know God. So if they don't know God, how can they worship God? How can they seek God? Yet we're right here. We know God, but sometimes we just come around, we're just like, hey man, what's going on? So this and that. Okay, cool. We're good. We know God and we have access to God. And there's so many other people out there that are crying out there because they don't know God. Right? Let your yes change history. Let your simple obedience change history. So when you walk out that door, and if you hear the word coronavirus, you go up to that person, whoever's saying it, and being like, why are you scared? As if you had something higher than anyone in this universe that was greater. Right? Walk with faith. When you radiate, when you walk every step, let it radiate love of the fruits of the Spirit. Right? Believe it. Actually become what you believe. Like, we can't just be mundane anymore and just kind of be like, all right, everything's like whatever and stuff like that, right? Like, we can't do that anymore. Let's push each other, right? And let's say, you know what? Like, it's not corny to worship. It's not corny to just scream Jesus, right? Don't follow the trend. Why am I saying that? Because I grew up in social media and I see it. Of where the church is going, where media is going, where all of this is going. And if it doesn't fall back to the love of Jesus, then we've lost it throughout it, right? Jeff, is there another slide? Okay, cool. And to close everything on it, I want to I do this with my church back home, and I told them every time I speak, after I speak, I tell them, let's do action steps, right? Because I just never want to talk. I never want it to be a feel-good message or a hype message or anything like that, but let's start moving in faith. Let's start actually moving as if we believed in a real God, right? Throughout it. And so I don't know what that looks like, but let's just have this conversation. And Chris, if you can hop back on the piano. If you need prayer for anything, let's just surrender to God and give it all to God. If you can sing Waymaker, and just really surrender to God. Contend for other people. Right? Contend for other people's hearts. There are people dying out there, but revival going on right there. So I, myself, am committed right now that I want to be a part of this revival. I, myself, want to be a part of what God is doing right now. I contend for the city of Tampa. I have such a heart for Tampa, and to the people that don't know what's going on in Tampa, it's the #1 most sex trafficking city in America. And it's happening in our streets, and I have little girls at my church. And all I can think about sometimes is just stay behind me. But we can do this together, right? We don't have to do it alone, we can do it together. Have all the leaders come together and press forward and say, you know what? It was never about our little islands of churches. It was never about us. It was never about anything that we're building, but it was always about Him. As if you believed it. Right? Don't be the same of what the enemy has been trying to do to you. But you experience absolute joy. Right? You have it in you. I promise all you guys have it in you. Shoot, I used to be, and they saw my journey. A lot of these guys have seen my journey. I used to be a guy that was just very scared of expressing myself when it came to faith. Right? But I tell myself, you know what? I can't just sit here and just come to church or just come and pray and say that's it. There has to be something more deeper. Whatever insecurity, there's something more deeper. Whatever chain that's limiting you, there's something more deeper. Right? And so I don't know what that looks like for each and every one of you. But only God can tell you. But as a community, this is what we can do. We can say, hey man, how are you doing? Are you having a bad day? Then let's pray throughout that. I can't fix you. No one can fix us. But we go deeper with each other as a community, as a church, and as a family for God. And so, this is the call to action, right? When you walk out there, you spread the goodness of God. And don't be ashamed of God. Don't be ashamed of it. In your workplaces, in your relationships, in your marriages, wherever you talk about how good God is. One person's yes changed all of Africa. You never know. The thing that you might say to someone can change the rest of their life for them to shake a whole nation for God. You never know. That's why we're so all valuable. We're all masterpieces. We're all known. We're all children of God. And we can do this together. We don't have to be isolated and say, oh, okay, she's just doing her and he's doing him and stuff like that. But no, we surrender to God. Because if we don't have an intimate relationship with God, we'll never have an intimate relationship with people. It just won't happen. We can fake it, but it won't happen. So just give God time. You are the salt and you are the light in this world. How crazy is that? You are the salt and you are the light in this world. Each and every one of you guys.